raised by Queen Rania of Jordan in a new piece for, I think it was the Washington Post. In just over 2 months, she said Israel's turned Gaza into a hellscape. At least 8,000 children have died, more than the death tolls of Pearl Harbor, September the 11th, and Hurricane Katrina combined. These are gigantic and horrendous numbers of children being killed. Do you not have any qualms about the number of children being killed? I mean, does it not suggest that Israel...
I want to hear Queen Rania talking about this as much as I want to hear Queen Camilla or Meghan Markle. I mean, it's pathetic. Queen Rania is holding on to her own position in Jordan. The only piece of advice she has for anyone is how to marry a king. Queen Rania herself is just playing a very nasty political game. If she cared at all, and I would pose this to all the states in the region, if Jordan cared at all for the Palestinian people, they would take them in. They would take them in. They don't want them. If the Egyptians wanted them, they'd take them in, but they don't. Do you know why? Because every country that takes in the Palestinians gets terror. It happened in Egypt, it happened in Jordan, it happened in Syria, it happened in Lebanon, it happened in Tunisia, on and on. That's why these people don't really care about their fellow Muslims. They just care about hating Jews.
All right, Cenk, your response.
Opening salvo from Douglas Murray, going right after Queen Rania. And yeah, absolutely, Queen Rania has absolutely no standing here, folks. None whatsoever. And as Douglas so correctly basically said, he doesn't want to hear from Camilla. He doesn't want to hear from Meghan Markle. Doesn't want to hear from anybody. And if Queen Rania was just so supportive of the Palestinian people, why didn't Jordan open up their doors for more and more Palestinians? Why is it the Egyptians have closed their doors, their borders to the Palestinians? Why is that? And like he said, it's everywhere the Palestinians have gone. They have brought trouble. They have brought instability. They have brought terrorism with. Why? Because Hamas gets infiltrated into those areas as well and causes problem. And everybody knows it except for those people that absolutely refuse to see it, like people like Cenk the Cenk. Anyways, we're going to get to Cenk's response in just a few seconds. But before we do so, we just want to let you know you're watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your host, Dr. Nasir, and that's what we have on tap for you again today, folks. Another fiery debate between Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, the Young Jerks, and Douglas Murray. And what I'm going to do basically is sit back and let the fireworks explode. So let's get to Cenk's response right now.
Yeah, so you asked if he cared about 8,000 dead babies. And his answer was no. Queen Rania bothers me, so complete non-answer, because he doesn't care. He doesn't think the Palestinians' lives are worth anything. He just called them all terrorists.
Well, it's nice you can put that
and this is what they always do.
There you go.
So hold on for a long time. So why don't you shut up for a second? So we've got all of these dead babies. We've got all of these dead babies that this monster doesn't care about. He says keep bombing them. A former intelligence officer said in the Israeli press they're using AI in a program called The Gospel, where he said it's basically a mass assassination factory. And we could all see it with our own eyes. And you can do all the propaganda you want. No one believes your nonsense. We see all the dead women. We see all the dead children. Now Israel has killed 20 times the number of civilians that Hamas killed. So would I want Hamas in charge of Israel? Never, never. I don't trust them, and I don't believe that they would be benign. So all of this propaganda about, people don't mind Hamas. No, we mind Hamas. We terribly what happened on October 7th. And I've now shown you different Israelis that have said that it's a problem. And I want peace and security for both Israel and Palestine. And this does not get Israel any peace or security. But when you ask the other side, do you mind tens of thousands of civilians that have been murdered, incinerated alive, body parts picked out of rubble, little babies killed over and over again in what is even the Israeli Prime Minister is referring to as Amalek, meaning an extermination of the Palestinian people. And I must clarify the difference between a genocide and a Holocaust. A genocide is when you target a specific people and kill a lot of civilians. Srebrenica, where 6,000 people were killed, was considered a genocide. So it doesn't mean you try to murder every single person in that
Cenk, let me ask
race.
you.
That is a Holocaust.
Okay, but let me reply. Wait, one second. Before I go to Douglas, Cenk, one question. You want to get rid of Hamas too, as does Douglas, as do I. If you don't do it the way that Israel is currently doing it, given that they live amongst the population, how else do you do it?
Yeah, there's an excellent way to do it, and there's the right way to do it. So let me explain. So war, this guy talks about, oh, I love war. I go to all the conflict zones. So by watching it and rooting on for more death, I know something about conflict. You know nothing. So here's what reality is. War gets you more war, but peace actually works. So when Israel did a peace deal with Egypt, not only were the Egyptians safe, but the Israelis became safer. That peace deal has held for decade after decade. So how do you do a peace deal in this case? What you do is you do the two-state solution now, and you do it with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. And if you then have a Palestinian state, the Palestinian Authority would have the credibility to drive out Hamas from Gaza. That is a realistic plan for both peace, security for Israel and the Palestinians, and driving out Hamas. The idea that you're going to kill 20,000 more civilians, 200,000 more civilians in Gaza, and it's going to drive out Hamas.
Okay, let Douglas answer that. Let Douglas respond to that.
First of all,
well, that was something, wasn't it? Now, I don't think Cenk did his side or himself, any good by basically, calling, using pejoratives and using name calling, calling Doug, just shut up, and you're a monster. And then, so that was overtly out there. And then subtly, but just not on the same par, but the same way, I gotta say to Douglas, he was sort of muttering under his breath, saying, just basically trying to admonish him, or just trying to say that, what you're saying isn't true. And I don't think that should have been from Douglas's side either, because Cenk let him talk without any interruptions at all. But that was underlying. But then one thing that Cenk said, I want to get, he goes, war gets you more war, but peace gets you peace. And all you need to do is use this solution, is let the Palestinian Authority get in there, have elections, and they'll drive out Hamas. Really, Cenk? The Palestinian Authority that's been there for decades, they haven't done anything in the last 18 years. And when you say Hamas was elected democratically 18 years ago, and they haven't had elections since, they're the ones that control everything. They control the guns. They control the people with fear, with violence. You know what they're doing? They're killing the opposition. What they do to their fellow co-religionists, the Fatah, right? The opposition, the Palestinian opposition, they killed them all, jailed them, raped their women, killed their children. They did all kinds of things. And they've held a firm control grip over Gaza and the West Bank and the Palestinians for over 18 years. No elections. And you're saying all of a sudden right now, oh, I got the solution. We'll just the PLO get in there and they'll drive them out. It's just ridiculous. It doesn't even it's not going to work. It won't work. Anyways, let's get to Douglas's response right now.
First of all, I mean, your other guest, I mean, I don't know what kind of a creature he is. He's a kind of low-grade thug, as far as I can see. He's listened to nothing I've said.
Yeah, I know, because I'm Muslim. That's what we call all Muslims.
I'll tell you. No, it's not that at all. It's not that at all. I just think that I think you're just a very low-rent racist. But anyway, let me just get on to it. You say first of all, I don't care about the death of Palestinian children. Yes, I do care. I care very deeply about it. But I also know that the responsibility for their deaths lies on Hamas, which has misgoverned their society for the last 16 years and now has been leading the country into being in a war with Israel. So yes, it's on Hamas this. As for seeing wars, by the way, I just mentioned about seeing wars because as far as I can see, you're very ill-traveled as well as rather ill-lettered and ill-spoken. And I mention that I cover wars and go to wars because I happen to think myself that it's worth seeing things with your own eyes, including things that you don't particularly like, but you report the truth. I don't know if you ever even leave your own bedroom. And I can tell already that you don't, because you've already said something that demonstrates you know nothing about this conflict. You have just demonstrated it in the following terms. You said that this is why we need to push for a two-state solution and give legitimacy to the Palestinian Authority. I'll tell you something you don't know, because I guess you spent no time in the West Bank, have you? I'll tell you something you probably don't know. The Palestinian Authority, Fatah, celebrated the 7th of October massacres. I'll give you another fact which demonstrates you know nothing about this and clearly haven't ever visited any Palestinians in the West Bank as I have. If there was an election tomorrow in the West Bank, the reason why there isn't one is because if there was an election tomorrow in the West Bank, Hamas would win. So your idea of a two-state solution, I'm afraid you are so out of date and you really should leave your bedroom, because in this region, nobody thinks that there is a two-state solution on the table because there is not a viable negotiating partner. But I just want to make one other main point. You have gone on and on tonight, throwing accusations out against the Jewish state, against me. It's the sort of thing you do. I know you're a sort of online pugilist and think you can run for office, and good luck with that. But I'd just like to point out that you only really get animated if the Jews are involved. And I can tell that for the following reason. I mean, your surname's Uyghur, isn't it? 1 million Uyghur Muslims in China have been put in concentration camps in the last decade. And people of your ilk never really care about that, do you? Because it's not the Jews doing it, it's the Chinese Communist Party. At the moment, 1 million people who are in Pakistan at the moment, who are your fellow Muslims and who happen to be Afghan, and I don't think you care about them, do you? 1 million Afghans are currently being forcibly deported from Pakistan to Afghanistan. You don't care about that. You're not riled up about that. You're not riled up about what the Janjaweed are currently doing in Sudan, where thousands and thousands of people are being attacked by the Islamist militia there. You don't care about any of that. You get exercised and you rile up what little base you have of malcontents because you're riled up when the Jews do anything.
All right,
it's
Cenk,
perfectly obvious.
Okay. Cenk, your response.
Yeah. Okay, first of all...
Wow, that was incredible. Douglas Murray, again, using his just method of counterattacking and using that velvet glove to come down like a sledgehammer, basically refuting every single point that Cenk the Cenk was making. I mean, it was very impressive to watch. And then basically telling Cenk that, you know what, you don't get out, you don't cover these stories, you've never been to the place that you're talking about, you've never visited a war zone, you know, you just stay in your bedroom, you're a pugilistic thug online. I mean, all these things that just basically, I mean, just absolutely were decimating as far as I'm concerned. It's like, and then the biggest thing is talking about the historical nature that Cenk doesn't even realize the difference between the PLO and Hamas. And like he said, if they had an election right now, you think the PLO is going to win? 18 years they haven't been able to win. It's been controlled, completely dominated, okay, by Hamas. Completely. And then the other thing, this is what I talk about all the time. Why is it that everybody gets riled up all over the world? You have protests all the way from like Dublin to Dubuque, Dublin to, Los Angeles, to Burbank, to New York City, Paris, London, Prague, you name it, any major big city or small city in Western Europe or in America, Canada, Australia, all these protests, Germany, they're going on. But where are these protests for the 2 or 3 million, upwards of 2 to 3 million Chinese Muslims, Uyghurs, that are imprisoned in concentration camps in China? Right? What about the Muslims in Kashmir and the Hindus in Kashmir? What about in Myanmar and Burma? What about the Muslims everywhere else? No, but there's no protests. Never. You never see anything. Nobody gets riled up like this thing here. But because it's the Jewish state, it's Israel involved inside there, everybody gets riled up. Everybody comes out of the woodwork. It's just amazing. That's why I would like to ask that question. Just answer me that question. Why is the Muslim world and all these other wannabes, right? All these social justice warriors, all these virtue signaling elites, all these students on campuses all across the United States, around the world. Where are their huge, massive protests or sit-downs for the other Muslims, the ones in China, in Burma, in Kashmir, and other parts, of the world? No answer. Crickets, folks. That's all yours, crickets. Anyways, let's get back to Cenk's response and see what's in store for Doug.
Last name is Uygur. We're named after the Uyghur Turks in China. And have we talked about
I
that on
thought
the
you
Young
had spoken
Turks?
up then.
Yes. Yes, we've talked about it endlessly, but you don't know that, and you don't watch the show.
Shame
you just
nobody
make
watches
things
your
up.
show.
So
nobody does watch your show.
Yeah, well, okay, again, you're interrupting me when I was kind enough to let you go on with your mad ramblings. So how nobody watches the show, we have 5 billion views a year. I don't know what piddling outfit you're on, or what little Substack or whatever the hell you write on. So the reason we're incredibly popular is we fight for all. We fight for shut up. We fight for all innocent civilians. So yes, we've covered all of those conflicts. Yes, I'm against fundamentalist Islam, no question about it. I'm against fundamentalist religions of all kind. In terms of every right-wing supporter of Israel, their only tactic is, hey, don't look at the 8,000 murdered children. Don't look at the 6,400 murdered women. Don't look at the fact that all the hospitals in northern Gaza have been shut down. Don't look at the fact that 4 out of 5 people in northern Gaza are starving right now, and half of the people in southern Gaza are starving. Instead, anti-Semite, anti-Semite. Now, wait a minute. I just told you how much I want peace and security for Israel, how much I hated what happened on October 7th. What you don't know is I started the Young Turks with 2 Jewish friends. And so the whole program is both Jews and Muslims. You know nothing. You know nothing. I have Jewish family and friends. Why in the world, God, as they go to Israel, I want them to be safe, okay? So I have shown empathy for all civilians throughout everything I have ever done. But all you have is hatred. Oh, he's an anti-Semite. Kill the Muslims. Kill the Palestinians. And once we kill them, by the way, we'll blame them for it. Israel had to murder all those babies in Palestine because Hamas made us do it. Then why are you listening to Hamas? Why are you letting Hamas drive your agenda? Well, you don't have to kill those civilians. It's a mass assassination factory.
So Cenk comes back just as boisterous, just as bloviating, just as powerful, just as passionate as ever. Literally calls everything that Doug is doing right-wing racist. And then Doug is muttering underneath his breath as Cenk is talking. And then Cenk tells him to shut up a couple of times. So there's that. And then Cenk just goes into the, just the same talking points. He's basically talking about the Hamas, death toll, with the children that were killed, women that were killed, using Hamas's figures, no corroboration whatsoever. Basically saying that, everything that, that Doug is calling him an anti-Semite, and Doug said, I never called you that. Then now the one thing that Cenk did get into was when Doug said, I don't think anybody watches, your show. That's not true, obviously. There are millions of people that watch the Young Turks, and he does have quite a number of followings and number of views on his show. Now, has there been some situations? Have they had some problems in sort of getting, funding and those kind of things? Yeah, absolutely. That's been out in the open. But the Young Turks is certainly, if not the largest, one of the largest progressive news outlets that are out there using the term, progressive to define themselves. So they've been doing that, and they've got a lot of people now. Do they always tell the truth? Do they bend the? Oh, absolutely. Did they spin? Oh my goodness! You listen to some of the things that they talk about, you'll get dizzy listening to the spin that's coming out of the Young Turks. Do they flip and flop? Absolutely. Have you seen some of the stuff that started from before the Young Turks and how it's evolved to now? Completely changed format. So, anyways, once again, you've got to pick the side that you want to be on. Take a look at both of these people here. They have different debating styles, different ways of going at it. But one thing is certain. These guys don't like each other at all. at all. I'm sure there's enmity and hate between them, not because of the issues, but also just because of a whole host of other factors. Anyways, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your host, Dr. Nasir. If you haven't done so already and we've earned it, hope you like our content. Subscribe to the channel, like, share, and follow us. You know what to do. Check out our video links above and below. My final thought is, when you're right, and when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.